Hello, Lizzie here, and today I'm going to show you how to make Jenny. And Jenny is a big backpack ready for your holidays, hopefully this year or the next year. Anyway, really sizable, got loads of pockets, a really great project for you to make and not so difficult. Might look difficult when we start looking at it in detail, but absolutely it's not. Just a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. Anyway, this is a download available on my website lizzycurtis.com, so you can follow this video, download the pattern, and you'll be able to make this super easy. You could probably make it in a morning. Fully lined as well, and there's pockets inside the lining too. Not very often I do pockets, but this time I decided I would put 4 pockets in there, and very simple ones as well. So on this one I've chosen a really lovely sort of a turn clasp design here, but you can use magnetic closures, you can use buttons, velcro, anything you like. You don't have to follow this particular closure here. It just went with the fabric. So we have a zippy pocket across the front, and it's really big as well, really big and deep, so plenty of room for all your goodies in there. And if you wanted to, you could stitch up and make this go in half. Just stitch up to just before the zip, and that way that will give you 2 different pockets. So that was an idea that I came up with overnight. And then at the back we've got 2 more pockets here. Hold on, let's get them so you can see. There's one there and there's one here, so 2 more pockets. And of course, normally if you're wearing this as a backpack, that's quite secure because it's against your back. You've got a carry handle as well, so oftentimes I've got a backpack, I use it all the time, and I'll carry the carry handle rather than putting it on my shoulders. Depends what I'm doing or where I am. So you've got the option of the carry handle or the straps, and they're really long straps, really great for adjustability. If you're going to make this for a child, you'd need to make them a little bit smaller because they are quite long even though they're nearly fully closed. So it's a good idea to have that versatility. And so yeah, so you've got all the, and I've got the plastic buckles here. I couldn't wait to use these, and I've used a red zip at the front as well to match, so it all works out really well. I love the plastic buckles there. Now you can get plastic sliders and plastic D-rings, all those sort of things, but I figured it might not be strong enough, so I thought the buckles were fine, but the rest of it I wanted to keep as metal because I know the strength of it then. So like I say, it's a nice big size. It's got a gusset both sides, and that's kind of folds in when you've got your bits and pieces in there that you can see it folds, and the flap comes right over the front, so it's nice and secure. And then if we open it up, you can see that it's very roomy in there. You've got those pockets in there as well, so you know, you could have the lining really bright and cheerful. So this is Jenny, so we're going to work our way through that now. So I've already prepared my lining, but I'll talk about that when I get to it. So the first thing to do is to create the back pocket. So you've got your 2 pieces cut, and on the pattern it tells you all of the sizes that you'll need to cut. And again, mine is directional fabric, so watch out for the direction of your fabric. I'm using a cotton canvas, and with the sort of bag outer, not the pockets, but the bag outer pieces, I've stabilized with 2 pieces of iron-on stabilizer, medium weight. You could use foam if you want to. I personally don't like foam. I find it too difficult to fight with. So I use stabilizer. It's done and dusted. It's ironed on. I don't have to think about it. The pockets are unlined. You may want to line them. You decide what you want to do. But so making sure you're using the top edge of your pocket, turn over 1/4 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch again, and just top stitch all the way along so it's nice and neat. You might want to pin this, you might want to iron it over, you might want to use your quilting clips. So there's our back pocket, and the top has now been neatened, okay? So I'm going to just take the front pocket away for a moment so we don't get confused. Just trim your threads as you go. Now, with the gusset, you're told to cut the width and the length, and then you've got a template to actually curve that bottom off. Can you see how it's curved? So you'll need to do that with both gusset pieces. For the back and the front, the back is slightly bigger than the front, only by 1/2 inch or so. It kind of makes a difference to the flap. I don't know how that's worked out. It's the mathematics of it. So with the back piece, which is slightly longer, you're going to cut the top curved, and again that template is in the pattern, so you don't need to guess, but you're going to curve it so it's just a little bit more sort of nice to look at, and it lines up nicely with the sides of the bag. That's yeah, it's nicer to have a curve, I think. So with the pocket looking like, sorry, the back looking like that, we want to stitch the pocket onto the bottom of that piece. So literally all you're doing is putting right sides, I beg your pardon, you're putting raw edges together. So if I hold this up, there's my pocket. So you can see I've got the raw edges lined up at the bottom, and just stay stitch that in place. About 1/4 inch. All the seam allowances on this bag are 1/2 inch, which is unusual for me. So all the way along. You could use a walking foot, and then stay stitch up the sides. So let's get that nice and straight. You might want to pin that, because I can see my fabric has already moved, so I'm going to flip that over. So I'm going from the bottom up the top, but I'm still only stay stitching the sides and just stopping just beyond. So that pocket is now stitched in place, but it's only stay stitched. This is not the main seams, obviously. So the next thing is to fold it in half. Now you can do it either way. I probably fold it so the stabilizer is together, and I'm just creasing. So I've folded it in half, and I'm just creasing with my fingers along the center of that pocket, and using that crease as my guide, I'm going to stitch from that bottom raw edge up to the top of the pocket. And you might want to iron this or draw a line, but it's right in the center. Couple of nice back stitches. Make that really super strong, because that's going to take perhaps the weight of water bottles or books, maps, perhaps some money in there, whatever you want to, but it's nice to have the 2 pockets. So there we are. So there's the back looking like that with the 2 pockets now stitched in place. So the next thing is to actually put the buckles on, and we're going to use half the buckle. This time I'm using a lime green. Oh, I love it. And you only want half the buckle, so I'm using what I call the prongs. That's the piece I'm putting at the bottom of the bag. So I'm just splitting my buckle in half. When they're first new, they're really stiff. So all you're doing is, I'll show you at the side camera. So there is your buckle. So you're coming in from the back, and you're just folding this over to the front through that center, and that's how your buckle looks. And this buckle gets stitched onto your bag here and here, and it's measured 4 inches in from the sides. Okay, so if we stay on that side view, and I'll get my pen and my ruler, and I'll measure in 4 inches from that end, and I'm just going to put a pen mark there. Okay, so I've got a pen mark here. Whoops, let's have a look here. Move it, you can see it here and here, there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay stitch my buckles in place right in the center of that 4 inch mark there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same this side. So let's pop it under the machine. So it is just a stay stitch. And so I'm going to do the same with the other side. So up through the back, down through the front. If it's got a frayed edge like mine, it'll fight. Oh dear. Let's do that again. There we go. Pop that through, there we go. and you're just going to stay stitch that one in place. I'm going to run all the way across the machine, might as well, and place that buckle in the same place. And to be honest, it won't matter too much if you go to the right or the left of that line, as long as both are in the same place, so it looks nice on the back of your bag, so they're both equal. So there's the buckle in place there. Okay, so now we're going to do the handle and the buckles at the top. And the buckles, well, at the top have actually D-rings, they're not buckles. So we're going to put those in place as well. So we'll do the D-rings first. So I'm using silver, but you can use whatever you like. So again, you're just threading that D-ring onto that little piece of webbing. And I'll just stay stitch that in place. And I think on the pattern, like, you actually get a picture of this particular part where you just stay stitch those two pieces together. So now you've got 2 loops of webbing with the D-rings attached. Now again, from the top of your bag, so the top of the bag is the curve, this is the back, and it's the top, and it's curved, okay? You're going to mark down 6.5 inches, and then again you're going to mark 4 inches in. And I've already done my 6.5 inch line, so I'm marking now my 4 inch and my 4 inch. So just like we did before, except this time we're putting the webbing, and I shall show you on the side view. So if we just get that in view for you. Difficult to see with the fabric, I know, but here is the centre line where our webbing is going to go. Our webbing is going to go right on the top of this. So if I get the piece in that I'm going to use, it's going to go in the centre, okay? So what that means is there's my 4 inch mark there. You can just about see it. And the other one is just here. Okay, so my little webbing pieces with the D-rings are going to go on that centre line, but just to one side. So if I move that, there's the little line there, 4 inches, and my webbing is going just to the left of that line. And on this side, it goes just to the right of that line, okay? And I'm putting my webbing actually onto the line itself. Do you see this? This is the line here. And I'm just going to stitch it just there, just to hold it in place. So again, it's just a stay stitch. But don't travel across your bag. Like before, I travelled across just to save a bit of time. Don't do that this time, because that part of the bag you're actually going to see. So again, with this side, it's just right of the 4 inch mark, and the straps are sitting on the line. So if we have another look at it at the side, you'll be able to see what that looks like. So my 4 inch marks are here and here, and the centre line is there, and my top of my webbing goes across there. So when we put the webbing on, you'll notice that it's much longer than the actual width of the bag. So let me just hold it so you can see. It's much longer. But what you're going to do is you're going to attach it to your bag back, and your webbing is going to go over the centre of that line, and it's going to go over your webbing. Okay, I'm going to trim that because it's a little bit off-putting, isn't it? Let's get that. Oh, I think I need some new scissors. So over the top. So we're going to top stitch this in place, this webbing. We're going to top stitch this webbing in place. And what we're going to do is stitch up here, down there, and across. Okay, that's all we're going to do, that little rectangle there. And we're going to leave this piece unstitched. But when we come to the other side, we're going to start from this edge and do exactly the same. So we're going to stitch from here up to here, across to the top and back on ourselves. Okay, so it's just 2 little rectangles either side. So let's do one and then we'll do the other. So you're sitting that on top of that line. Now we're going to go over the webbing of the where the D-ring is. So you've got to be careful that your machine can take that thickness. And although I've used webbing, and I'm going to do some back stitches across there, because that's going to take quite a bit of strain if you use that as a handle and there's a lot of weight in your bag. So I've just back stitched to hold it nice and firm. Yeah, so if you find the webbing a little bit too much for your machine, because everybody's machines are different, then please make your own strapping in the normal way, where we do the 4-inch wide, fold it in half, fold it again, you get a 1-inch strap, no stabilizer. That way it's a lot thinner than webbing. But because it's a rucksack, because it's a backpack, I thought webbing would be really nice. But you decide for your machine. I can't make your machine do things that perhaps mine could, but I try to make things where it is actually achievable. And also I like to give you alternatives of what you can use. So again, we're going across that little bit there, but we're going to back stitch just because it, like I said before, it takes quite a lot of strain there. And across. And try to use thread that's the same colour as your webbing, because that's going to be a top stitch. It's got to look good if it's in a different colour. So look, now you can see we've got the handle in place. Isn't it great how that works? So simple. And obviously the flap comes over the front like that, and that's how your bag looks. So you've actually made the back. How easy was that? Let's do the front. So again, don't forget, if you've got directional fabric, then make sure it's all going in the right way. So with this one, we're going to actually install a zip. Okay, so we'll do that first and then we'll attach it to the bag. So let's find the zip. Now the zip, I've asked you to cut it wider, which means that you can move that slider right out of the way. So let's just get it out of the way. So change to your zipper foot. Now my little zipper foot is really weird for this machine. No matter how well I stitch, it'll only stitch an eighth of an inch away from the zip teeth. I can't change that. Whereas with your machine, you might be able to get a lot closer. So just bear that in mind when you're stitching, that mine may be a little bit different to yours. So I'm going to start stitching right at the and as near to the teeth as I can get. And all you're doing, like I said, right side of your zip to the right side of your fabric. Your zip slider is way out of the way, so you don't worry about that. And you're just stitching the two together. And if you want a little tip, on the back of your zip, you'll find a lot of sort of lines where the zip has been woven. It's a woven tape. So you might be able to follow some of those lines that have been woven into the back of the zip. If you look at your zip, you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. So once that's stitched in, flip it over, top stitch it. Makes such a huge difference. And again, I haven't lined my pocket, but you might want to do that. Now, because the lime green is quite a feature on this bag with the buckles, I'm making it a feature with the zip. And I'm making that zip really stand out. So, let's go all the way along. So that's how it looks with the top stitching. It looks really neat. I know it's not easy to see. Let's show you at the side view. And you can see how that slider is way out of the way. It's really lovely how that works. So on your bag front, which hasn't got the curves, this is your bag front, it's slightly smaller than the back, you will have drawn a line from the base of 4.5 inches. Okay, so you can just about see I've drawn a line right across there. And what we're going to do now is right sides together. Now your pocket goes upside down. Okay, your pocket goes, it's difficult for me to do it, I'll pin it actually. And you're going to put the raw edge of the pocket to the line. Okay, so the raw edge goes to the line. It doesn't go beyond the line, it doesn't go under the line, it goes on the line. So I'll just pin that in place so it'll look like that. Okay, so when you've stitched it and you flip this back, it's in the right position. Makes sense, but when you go to stitch it, it's a bit like a Chinese puzzle. So you're putting the raw edge to the drawn line, okay, and that drawn line is 4.5 inches from the base. Now I have to take the pins out, I can't cope with pins. And just make sure your fabric is right in the right place. And again, don't forget, we're working with 1/2 inch seam allowances, and that's everywhere. That's the pockets, that's when we put the seams together, everything. I've still got my zipper foot on, I've just realised, but I do need it for the next piece. And this fabric really travels badly. It needs a walking foot really. So there we go. So I've flipped my pocket over. Okay, so that's just been stitched. I flipped it over so it's now facing the right way. Now this is where you want to kind of press it with your hand. You can put the iron over it, and I'm actually now going to pin it. So push that. Do you see where I've stitched? I'm pushing that away from me. I'm going to pin it. Okay, so do the same 2 or 3 places and pin it. If I can get hold of the pin, there we go. And all that's doing is keeping the pocket in exactly the right place. And pin. There we go. Not too bad. Probably just move that over a little bit. So that keeps the pocket lovely and flat. There we go. That's better. Right. So with your other piece of webbing, which is cut to size, so this should be exactly the same width as your bag, you're now going to stitch the webbing onto the zip and through the bag. So it attaches it in 3 places. It's attaching it to the bag, to the zip, and obviously the webbing to the whole lot. So just bring it up to your machine. So this is why I kept my zipper foot on. And if you place it so it's the same distance away from where you stitched before with the zip, it'll look really attractive. I'm just going to move that slightly. There we go. So I'll stitch it and then I'll show you. So the webbing has gone right over the top. You can see how that looks, can't you? So just top stitch in place. And again, if your machine is struggling going through webbing is actually quite soft. Then, like I said before, create your own straps, you know, one inch straps, like we would if we were bag making. And, you know, we've covered that quite a few times. I think when I've got to this stage now, I'm going to neaten it in a second. So, let me take the pins out. Okay. So, let's have a look at the side view here. So you can see that I've top stitched the webbing right through the zip, right through the bag. That is now attached, and it's like this. And we're going to top stitch across there just to hold that webbing in place so it looks nice and neat. But that is all attached, and when we open up the zip, you can see how that looks. It's attached there. Okay, so we'll just close that up again. You can stay stitch along here to make sure that it's all lovely and neat. So you can stay stitch up there and trim, because you can see how the fabric moves, and trim this side. But we're going to top stitch across here next. So I'll keep my zipper foot on just for the moment, but change back to your regular foot. And like I said, it's a good job I've got matching thread to my webbing, because I went a bit wriggly there. My machine is so fast, sometimes it runs away with me. Right, so I'm just trimming everything back now. And this pocket needs a trim. It started off exactly the same size as the bag, but like I say, it moves. This is where a walking foot would really come in handy. So that webbing is now completely attached to the bag and to the zip, and made a really nice neat job. But I'm going to stay stitch up the sides just to secure that pocket in place, so it doesn't get in a muddle in the way when I'm stitching the side seams. So let's put my regular foot back on again. And that's it. When in doubt, raise the needle. It's like everything, isn't it? When you're in a hurry, or under pressure. Not that I'm under pressure with you guys, but you know, you can never get things done correctly. Right, I'm going to stay stitch up the sides. Make sure those zipper teeth are together, which it wasn't just then. I'm going to move back, do that bit again. That's it. And then down the other side. Lovely. So that's the front done. Doesn't it look smashing? I love that lime green on there. Really lifts it. You don't have to worry about leaving that zipper open. We're not going to use it for anything for turning through. So it's fine wherever you want to leave it. So now what we're going to do is stitch the back to the front. So I'll leave the front flat on my desk. You can just about see it there. And I'm taking the back piece that we've just created, right sides together. Now again, you might want to pin clip this together. I'm just going to lay it on top and sort of go for it. I just need to trim this pocket back so it's nice and neat. There we go. Right the way across. There we go. So again, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure those pieces of webbing, you know, with the tabs, make sure they're out of the way. That's it. And make sure the plastic is not in your way. Over the top of all of that webbing. Again, right to the other end. Make sure your buckle's sitting flat. Okay. We've got a really large piece of fabric now, so that's what it looks like. And you'll notice that when you bring the front up to the back, that it sits, that back pocket, even though that's our back seam there, it sits sort of quite proud, and it sort of sits further up the bag than what you expected. You expected perhaps that to be at the bottom, but because we've done different sizes here, that's how it works out, which is great. So we're going to top stitch that. I'll do that before I forget, because that is quite a good thing to do. Just so you're top stitching that seam away from the buckles, and that holds all those seams in place. And to be honest, you could give this a press before you do that then. So all the way across, about 1/8 inch. And that's beautiful now, it's lovely and flat. I don't know if you can see how that looks. So that is your bag made. We've just got to put the gussets in and then put the lining in and we're done. So how easy is that? So take one of your gussets, and what we're going to do is stitch the right sides together, okay? Now I always stitch the straight side to the curve, that being the curve, okay? So I'm going to stitch with the gusset underneath and the bag on top, because this bag I'm going to clip as we get to those curves, but I'm going to start off straight like this. So we've got I've got the gusset underneath and the bag on top. 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you'll come sort of quite a way down before you have to clip. So all the way. 1/2 inch seam allowance. I find the 2 layers of stabiliser quite malleable. With foam, it's quite a sort of a narrow piece to get round, so you might struggle a little bit, but keep at it. So I'm just coming down to the curve now, and all I'm going to do is clip into my bag front, and I'm just going to clip 1/4 inch in about every 1/4 inch, okay? Just so it takes me around that corner nicely. And because we've clipped, it splays the fabric out, and you can get round corners much easier than if you didn't clip. So I'm going to clip about 5 inches, so it takes me all the way around And that, oh gosh, that's plenty, all the way around that bottom curve. So just take your time and splay those clipped parts out. So as you come to it, it splays out. Makes a difference. So just take that moment to do that. So come around the bottom of the gusset. And then round the curves. Concentration levels are on all-time high. Bring your gusset round. So you see this bit of gusset here that I've got my hand on. Bring that round. Push the back now. And you'll get that lined up. And then we're round. So it's now just straight up the side of the bag. And because both of these pieces are very heavily stabilised, nothing is stretching. Have you ever wondered what the Gold Club is all about? So many people message me, what is the Gold Club? Okay, simply it's my online sewing group, okay, mainly based on Facebook, where we have a bit of a natter every day. We do Facebook Lives and make all sorts of things. But if you go to my website, lizzycurtis.com, you'll see a Join Gold tab on the top there. And all that means is that you click on that, and you buy it. So for £5, which in dollars is about $6.30, depending on exchange rates and times, you will get 3 patterns every month. I know, it's mad. If you look at the price of my patterns in the shop, generally they're now $4.99. The value of the Gold Club online membership at this point in time is just £5 a month. So you're getting the 3 free patterns every month, and they're all made by me, designed for you. Easy, moderate, fairly difficult. Then we have the Facebook to back that up all as well, the Facebook group. So we have a wonderful time in there. We're all great friends. So if you want to join a great online sewing community, join Lizzy's Gold Club. So just beyond the tape, I'll show you what I mean when I get to. There we go. So you can see. Oh, there you go. It's just beyond that tape at the back. That's where the handle is, if you remember. So we've put one gusset in. Let me show you on the side camera what those splits look like, because it's quite interesting to see. So if I bring it down, as we go round the corner, do you see how those splits just open up and allow that to actually... I could have done with a less seam allowance there, but you can see how it curves around beautifully. So now we're stitching the other side. Now this time, because we're doing straight side to curved side, I'm going to start from the back, and I'm going to use the measurement. So where I finish, let's do it so you can see. Because I haven't got a notch or anything for you to follow, but do you see where I finished here in that little corner there? So if we come across here, we're going to start putting our other gusset on about here. You can measure that piece if you like. It might differ with your cut, you know, how you've cut the pieces or how you've stitched, your seam allowances, all those things. So I would wait until you've put this gusset, that gusset in, to measure this bit. But you're starting from there with putting the second gusset in. And it's, I would say it's about 3/4 of an inch on mine. So right sides together, just get those lined up. There we go. And let's thread my needle. How did that become unthreaded? I must have caught it on something. Bear with. Let's just thread that. I have got an automatic threader, needle threader, but I find it just as quick to thread by hand. And anyway, this is a peculiar needle threader, and I think I've done it once, and then I did it again. I couldn't remember how to do it, so I've left it. Are you like that? Do you do that? Or do you? Some machines have the most amazing, easy peasy needle threaders, don't they? But I never seem to get a machine that has one. I think I had an Elna once, and the Elna needle threaders are amazing. So easy. I think it's years of doing it myself. I've got an eye for it. So we're just coming down to that bottom curve now. So I'm just going to snip into my bag piece again. And again, it's like I said, it's about a quarter of an inch apart, thereabouts. I haven't measured, but I am cutting for about 5 inches, okay? And you'll go across seams and pockets. I think that's about right. So just try and cut into those as best you can. So here we go. We're going to move that gusset round. The gusset is under here, look. Oops, can you see? It's just there. I'm moving that around to suit me, that much. I know you can't see anything, but you wouldn't be able to see anything even if I got a camera in here. You just got to trust me that I'm just stitching the gusset and the bag together. And hopefully my verbal instruction will be enough for you to follow. So I'm just coming round to that second curve. And it's manoeuvring all these pieces because it's a big bag. And that's probably, if anything, if you're going to struggle, that's what you'll struggle with. Not the stitching, because it's all so lovely and straight and easy. Just like a puzzle. You've got the pieces, you're just popping them together. So let's just get the gusset and the bag lined up. There we go. So that is our bag stitched together. Can you see how that looks? I'm going to try and, let's do it slowly so I don't make you dizzy. But that's what it looks like. I could turn it through and then it looks a little bit more interesting than stabiliser, doesn't it? But it's so stiff. And I'll probably have to turn it through again when I put the lining in, but just so you can see. And it will benefit from a lovely steam press. But you can imagine if you did this in foam, you'd have to fight it to get it turned through. I like foam for some things. I just avoid it. Call me a coward. Right, so push all those seams out, and this would be a good opportunity to give this a press, because when you put the lining in, you've got all that lining to contend with as well. So let's have a little look at it. Oh, it's lovely. Now these side pieces, you'll find when we finish it, we press those in. We steam these side pieces, kind of pleat it. Let's just do it so you can see like how it looks. I'll let that one go now. So those side pieces pleat in, and then the flap comes over the top. That look great. Love the fabric. And then that's what the back looks like. Okay. Now I had thoughts about these little pieces here because that's where the top parts of your straps are going to be clipped into. Now I didn't want to have those any closer because I wanted the carry handle there, okay? And I wondered about how that would be on a child, for instance, because their back obviously is quite a lot smaller than an adult. And you might want to bring those in. But one thing I did think about was that you could cross the straps over and then put it on to the child that way. Or you could put a second piece of webbing in and just attach these. Or you could make your straps, these little tabs, really super neat and move them so they sit underneath the handle piece and bring them into the centre here. Maybe that's something you need to think about. But personally, I like how that looks, and that's how I designed it. But you can obviously adapt it in any way. So that's our bag actually made. Look, it's complete. It's absolutely fabulous. You could put pockets in the side here actually for your water container. That would be nice. This is the trouble. You have one design, you come up with a dozen. Now, with the lining, which I've made, the pockets, let me turn this through so you can see. The pockets are made in exactly the same way. So in other words, on the back piece, which is the back? Let's have a quick look. That's the back, yep. So on this back pocket, sorry, not getting that straight for you. on that back piece, the bottom of the pocket here is that seam. So do you remember when we put the pocket on the back, we actually put the raw edge of the bottom of the pocket to the bottom of the bag and stitched it on, stay stitched it. It's exactly the same. And with the front, we do exactly the same with these pockets here as we did with the zip. So it's identical, except it doesn't have a zip, but you could put one in, but it's made in the identical way to the outside, okay? So all you got to do now is stitch these together. So right sides together, guys. I put a turning gap in my gusset on one side. There we go. Hopefully it'll be big enough. If not, we can just undo a few stitches. And so we're going to pop this inside, and you know this is where you're going to push and push and push to get those top seams to lie straight with each other. So just push that bag right in there. And that's almost perfect. There we go. So the main thing here, there we go, you can see how that looks now. The main thing is to get your 4 seams to match. So the seam here of my lining should match the seam of my bag. And if you want to nest those seams, by all means do that. And it will just distribute the weight of the fabric or the thickness of the fabric a little better. I'm not too fussed about it. It's slightly different on the back. So this front one, we can do that. The back is slightly different. I'll perhaps show you on the side camera how that looks. So I'm just bringing up the top and making sure that top is sitting beautifully together. And again, it's a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you're just clipping those together. So when we get to the side, and let me bring this in so you can see. So this is our side piece. My gusset was just slightly longer, about 1/8 of an inch. But all you're going to do is these seams here, so the seams of the gusset and the seam of the bag, okay, turn it so you can see, there we go. So the seam of the bag and the seam of the gusset are facing exactly where they are, facing that way, okay, and clip them together so they're lovely and neat, okay. And then when we stitch this, I'm going to draw on this so you can see. I'll do it and then I'll show it to you. I'll take that out for a moment. Let's try and get it so you can see what I'm doing. It's getting the light in there so you can see. Is you're coming along 1/2 inch here. You're coming along, I will do this a little better in a second, but I've got to draw it first. So you're coming along 1/2 inch all the way around your bag. You can see that. Let me just move that slightly. There we go. And then you're coming down your stitching, and you're coming on, you're going to be stitching just to the side of your stitching here. So your stitching actually is there, and your line is about 1 millimetre away from that stitching. And then you're going to turn the corner, so you're going to pivot your needle. Let me draw it and then I'll show it to you. You're going to pivot your needle, and then you're going to come around that corner. So let me show you that again, how that looks. Gosh, it's hard to get that so you can see it. There we go. Is that better? And that seam, that stitch seam that you've put along there, you've stitched along there, is just on the inside, if you like. Oh, that's better. So you're coming up, you're going to pivot, and you're going to stitch across. And when we go to turn, before we turn through, you're going to cut into that. But be very careful how much you cut away, because that is really a stress point there. So I'd rather that was slightly puckered than the perfect turned piece. Okay. So we're going to stitch all the way around that. And this is where, if you have a free arm facility on your machine, absolutely the best time ever to use it. I don't have that. So I'm going to start right in the centre. And like I said before, it's 1/2 inch, so you don't forget. Again, you might find your fabric moves, so I really strongly suggest a walking foot now, because otherwise I know that by the time I go around this, it's going to be slightly puckered. Well, unless I do what I'm doing, which is pulling it, I don't recommend you do that. It's sort of do as I say, not as I do. So we're just coming up to the seam, so I'm just going on 1 stitch beyond that seam, pivoting, turning. I'm going to put a little back stitch in there just to secure that corner really well, and then let's manoeuvre all of this fabric. Stick to your 1/2 inch seam allowance, guys. Take my clip out. And then just come up to where I started. Oh! You can see how free arm on your machine is really helpful. So they're stitched all the way around, so you can see that okay. Stitched all the way around. So now we're just going to turn through. Like I say, I've got a little gap here. I might open that up just a wee bit. Because there's no point struggling, is there? I'd rather have a bigger turning gap. I always do about 5 inches and then wish I'd done about 6 or 7. There we go. I don't want to struggle. So just grab a corner and bring a corner through, and then at least you've got a bit of a head start. Because of all the stabiliser, it is going to be stiff. It is going to be a bulky thing to pull through. Okay, and then just make sure you get your hand in where the flap is and just push all that out. Look. Oh, we didn't snip into the corners, did we? I need to do that. Otherwise it just won't turn through nicely. So I can see, I can go into my bag and do that. I must have done this when I've made this sample bag up a couple of times now, and I've done that every time, turned it through and then remembered. But fortunately, we haven't stitched the turning gap, haven't cut it, I haven't turned it all the way through, so we're fine. No stress, no worries. It's real life. Not too bad. Yeah, there's a lot of layers there. Right, I think we're fine. I can always go in and tweak it later. So get your flap out. Now then, you will need to give this a really good press along this top seam, okay? Because otherwise it just will not sit properly and you'll be so fed up with it because that lining will always want to poke out. So give it a really good press, and I strongly suggest a lovely top stitch all the way around that, just to hold it in place. So you can see straight away can you see how the lining is wanting to pop out? Because it's the seam as well, because the seam on the bag is stiff and stabilised, so it wants to sort of push out. But you've got to tell it who's boss. So just keep fiddling with it, finger press it, but certainly get a steam to this and get it so it looks beautiful. There we go. I do need to press it. Okay. But push it right in and you'll find all your lining pockets are there to get in your way at the moment. Right, so once you've pressed it, you'll also want to press it so these pieces stay in, and what I'll do is I'll put a clip there to hold it so we can see what that looks like. And obviously, like I keep saying, you will want to give this a press because it just won't look beautiful until you do that. And I know I'm like a broken record with it, but So I'll get it done with one of those lovely big clips. They're just super, these big ones. I have got some somewhere. So, and obviously you know that this lining will need to be pressed and top stitched, but that's our bag made. So you've got a really good idea of what it looks like without me having to press it and come back to you. And that's what the back looks like. It looks great, doesn't it? Just needs a little bit of a fiddle and a sort out. There we go. I think that's a bit better. Is it that one? I was just trying to see which one was sitting prouder. There we are. That's better now. So you can see how that looks, and that handle is the perfect position then to hold. So what I'll do is I'll make up the straps for you now. And I have got a butterfly to put on the front of this, because fortunately this bag also has butterflies on it. Now I'm not going to do that on the video, and the reason for that is because it has the tiniest little screws that I have to put through the fabric, and the last time I did this it took me an hour, so I'm not going to do that on the video. If you want to email me about it or ask me about it, I'll certainly share my top tips with you, which is keep your patience. But it's just a case of using the template of the butterfly to actually draw through your fabric and cut all the way through your top flap to attach it. And then you have a plate on the back that comes off and that you screw that onto, and then the turn clasp piece here is a bit like putting a magnetic closure in. It's got the two prongs there, can you see? So you just put the prongs through your fabric just as you normally would, and actually with this bag, because I want it to be really super strong, I've taken it right through to the lining, whereas normally I would just do it on the bag front, but I wanted that all to stay put. That's why pressing it and giving it a really good steam and top stitching it holds that lining in place in the correct position for your clasp. You don't have to do that. You could put it just onto the bag front as it is and not through the lining. Absolutely you can, but I'm going to leave that choice to you as to what you do. Okay, so with your straps, you've got the length and the pattern of what you need to cut. The first thing you're going to do is, oh, and I've got a slider missing, so I'll make up one. You're going to get a slider, okay? It's a 1 inch slider because your webbing is 1 inch. You're going to, if I do this on the side, you'll be able to see. So there's your slider. Let's get rid of the rubbish. So you're coming up through your slider. Okay, there's the centre bar there. You might have one with a rigid bar, no difference. Pop your webbing through the other side, and you're going to draw it through about 1 inch, so perhaps 1.25 inches, so it looks like that. Okay, and then you're just top stitching that across. I'll do that on the machine. So let's have a look, and if you want to, you could zigzag that, because obviously the webbing will fray a little bit. I just get a little bit of glue and just dab the glue on the frayed ends there and just leave it like that. Because this machine doesn't do any form of zigzag, it's completely and utterly a straight stitch machine, I tend to use a bit of glue. But of course I could just change machine, but anyway. So there is the first part done. So that's your slider attached. Okay, so if you can see, there's our wrong side of our webbing there and our slider. So you're keeping the webbing all laying like this, and there's the other part of your plastic buckle, and you're going from the back to the front like that. Okay, and just sliding it on, and then you're coming up to your slider and you're going threading through from one side to the other, and that's your slider attached. Okay, and then your buckle, it just attaches quite simply like that. Okay, and when we come up to this top part here, so let's just make that a little bit shorter so we can get it on camera. So that's what that looks like. Okay, so all we need to do now is to attach our swivel clip, which is this one here. So all you're doing is threading it through from the front to the back and top stitching across here, which we'll do. I'll just do that now. And again, you might want to use a zigzag across that to make it neat. And do a couple of rows of stitching backwards and forwards. Again, it's got to take the strain of perhaps all your books or your picnic stuff or whatever you decide to put in your backpack. Like I say, I'll use glue with mine later. Just a fabric glue is fine. And then if you show you at the side camera, so there's my swivel clip installed. It's so easy, isn't it? And then obviously all we do is clip that on like that. Okay, so if I just reach across and get another slider, we might as well do the other one. So you're coming up one side, down the other, and just attaching it, and it's about a 1 inch. Well, you can make it what you like, but it's about a 1 inch that you're bringing back on itself to stitch. And don't forget to back stitch so it's really strong. So that's our slider. So then get it so the wrong side is facing up. Get your other buckle and you're coming from the back to the front. Okay, oops. Get that all so it's going the right way. Back to the front. So your buckle is attached. You're coming up to your slider, you're going up and over, like the bridge, isn't it? Up and over. Whoops. There we go. So that gives you your slider is now attached to your buckle. Okay. We'll make it a bit longer. Sorry, a bit shorter. And then with your swivel clip, you're going from the front to the back. Again, about another inch. You're folding back. And again, 2 or 3 good rows of stitching backwards and forwards. Trim all your threads, neaten all your bits and pieces off, and I'll glue this later. And that has created your strap. So we just clip this on there, and we can clip on the clips there. So now there are 2 straps attached, but like I said, you could cross these over. So let's just do that. I think it would be easier to do that rather than adjust the pattern and have it so excuse me, so it crosses over. Although it's not easy to see, but you've got it so it's crossed. I've got a bit of a twist going on. There we go. Because it's swivel clips, they will twist. There we go. So you've got that, you can see, you've got the cross. And actually that might be easier for a child. But there we are. So all I have to do is now spend an hour putting my butterfly clasp on. Like I say, you might have used magnetic closures. And that is Jenny. And she's absolutely gorgeous. Let me bring up the one that I originally made. Let's pop this one out of the way. It needs a jolly good press. So there we are. So there's Jenny. Doesn't she look glorious? Zippy pocket at the front. Like I say, you could stitch up to here, but you would stitch only to just before the zip, and then you'd still have 2 pockets. You've got 2 pockets at the back, here and here. You've got 4 pockets inside with the lining. You don't have to do those if you don't want to. And you've got a really big bag to take away on your travels. So there we are. So that completes the trio of the patterns. If you've seen them in the order that I've made them, you probably haven't. But we have done Janet, Jack and Jenny, and that is our travel trio companions. And I hope you enjoy making it. Go to the website lizzycurtis.com and download the PDF pattern. It's very, very easy. It's all to scale for you on an A4 print. And I hope you make loads.